So I haven't seen anyone talk about what we're going to be talking about in today's video, and I kind of find it interesting because I do wonder what Insomniac will do, if they will be doing anything at all with the characters that we're going to be discussing today. So yeah, there may be two secret villains we might end up seeing in Marvel Spider-Man 2, and I'm not entirely sure how one of them could be incorporated in the story, and we'll go over that when we get to it, but the other one I do have a sort of an idea of how they could be incorporated within the story of Marvel Spider-Man 2, so let's get into it. First, let's start off with this guy, and you probably recognize him because, he was the Oscorp biochemist put in charge of Devil's Breath project back in Marvel Spider-Man PS4 by Norman Osborn. Now, we actually don't seem to know too much about this guy, but, let's go over what we do know so far about him and why he could potentially become a villain in Marvel Spider-Man 2 or maybe even 3, who knows. So he was born in Neola around 1966, and we don't know much about his childhood, but in his adulthood, he started working for Oscorp because he was the Osborn family doctor for decades, since he was responsible for prescribing experimental treatments to Emily Osborn, Harry's mom, Norman's wife, girlfriend, whichever, in 1997. And eventually that is when he got put in charge of the GR27 project, aka Devil's Breath, Norman's attempt to create CRISPR-based genome therapy to cure genetic disorders, mainly Harry's disease. And as we know in Marvel Spider-Man, this cure ended up in a deadly state of form, hence why the lab techs on the project nicknamed it Devil's Breath. With that, Michael was the only one to carry the only sample of GR27 at all times, and then the events of Spider-Man PS4 unfolded, where he was captured by Lee to get Devil's Breath, then Otto got to it, then Michael saved New York by mass producing a cure for it. So that's pretty much everything we know about him so far, but what if I told you there was more to this guy and who he actually is? Because if you did not know, Morgan Michaels is actually a nickname or different alias for Morbius. His in-game profile does seem to hint towards some sort of genetic condition, and as well working with Devil's Breath could maybe actually end up being the trigger for his vampirism, or maybe it could be something else that triggers it, who really knows for sure. But I think this would kind of be a good idea, so as long as they write it good, especially because Morbius needs some good street cred after the movie's huge double flop and the memes and all that stuff. So personally, I wouldn't mind seeing Morbius in Marvel Spider-Man 2 or 3 at some point, although this is like the villain that I have no clue how they would incorporate him into a story in this universe as a villain. I wouldn't mind him as long as it's a decent story or whatever, and it's not a huge one, maybe in a chapter of a DLC or some shit like that, or maybe a string of side missions. That's the only way I wouldn't mind seeing him in a future Insomniac Spider-Man game at some point, whether it be Marvel Spider-Man 2 or Marvel Spider-Man 3. If they ever do decide to incorporate Morbius into one of their games, I do wonder what would their design for Morbius look like, because there's been a couple different looks, but he is just a human vampire type thing, so I feel you can't get too crazy with the designs, but it's Insomniac, so they like to make their own distinctive designs and stuff like that. And this Dr. Michaels or Morbius, whatever, looks very different from the typical Morbius we've seen, mainly with the different skin tone, which that doesn't really matter, and then just the face or whatever, this is a very different design already for Morbius so far, at least. Now with that, let's get into the second possible secret villain we may see in Marvel Spider-Man 2, and this one actually is pretty likely, I would say, and this one could actually be incorporated into the story, I think, at least, and it would make a lot of sense too, mainly depending on how they do it. So let's start with some background context for those who don't really know much about this character. So let's start off with Kraven the Hunter. Back a few months ago, we obviously got the Kraven trailer for the game, so he's confirmed to be a major role in the game. He's been marketed a lot. He's pretty much the catalyst of the story, which has been confirmed, very similar to Mr. Negative's role in Marvel Spider-Man back in 2018. And in his trailer, he seems to be hunting for everybody. No one's off the limits. The Spider-Man, Lizard from the gameplay, Taskmaster, Shocker, Black Cat, Prowler, Wraith, a couple others I may have missed. But with that, for those who may not know, Kraven the Hunter actually has a brother, and that is actually the Chameleon. And if you don't know somehow who the Chameleon is, Think of him as the Batman's Clayface, but with technology instead. He can just shapeshift into any person with technology. And the thing about Chameleon is, you know, like, he's been in a couple iterations of Spider-Man media outside of the comic books, like Spider-Man the Animated Series 1994, Spectacular Spider-Man, and as well Spider-Man PS4 actually. And you may think, well, wait, he wasn't in the game. He was in the game, not in the flesh, like he didn't make a cameo or appearance, but he was referenced by Spider-Man. I'll play the clip for you right here.
You're back already? I thought you were checking out that fire.
Right, on my way now. Which way was it again?
Last time you went that way. South.
Thanks, I got a little turned around. Someone's impersonating me. Could be the Chameleon again. I've got to pick up his trail.
So yeah, that confirms Chameleon does actually already exist in the universe, which is interesting because as well, in a previous interview or event, I don't recall when it was specifically, but it was confirmed that Kraven has been watching the events of Spider-Man PS4 and Miles Morales from a distance apparently, and that would actually sort of make sense now because his brother Chameleon lives in New York and has tangled with Spider-Man before previously. So Chameleon exists in this universe. Typically, he is blood related to Kraven the Hunter. This has been a thing since the comics. Oh wait, correction, they're half brothers. Not much of a difference in my opinion. They're still related. Anyway, with that, how could Chameleon be incorporated into the story of Marvel Spider-Man 2? I think it's, you know, pretty simple actually, and kind of written on the wall. Just somehow, some way, make that connection and, you know, establish Kraven and Chameleon being brothers. Maybe Spider-Man is the main reason Kraven comes to New York, but before he goes off to, you know, start hunting, he stops by to see, you know, what's up with Chameleon or something, and, you know, we get a scene between them or something along those lines, you know, just kind of like a little build up of their relationship and see, you know, how they interact with each other and stuff like that. And, you know, he just visits him to see, you know, what's up with him, how he's been or whatever. And, you know, we kind of just see that dynamic of Kraven and Chameleon unfold. And then, I don't know, like maybe we could have the whole thing of Chameleon impersonating Spider-Man around the time he gets the symbiote. And yes, this did happen in Spectacular Spider-Man. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly like Spectacular Spider-Man did it, because Spectacular Spider-Man did include Black Cat in that story, and she does seem to be making a cameo of some sort in Marvel Spider-Man 2 based off the Kraven trailer for the game. But I think it would be cool to have some sort of sequence like Chameleon running through the streets of New York, changing into people randomly trying to get away from us as we chase him, and maybe, you know, we use our spider sense to try and detect him or something, and, you know, eventually we catch him, throw him in jail. Speaking of jail, I just thought of there does seem to be, you know, like the prison break at some point that we've seen in the story trailer, so don't know exactly when that would be in the story or like where that happens, but maybe Chameleon could escape from that event or whatever, and like Kraven could help him maybe, or maybe he just escapes on his own and he's back loose again. Maybe they could have something different happen the second time around, not sure specifically what, but yeah, I think we could possibly expect to see Chameleon in Spider-Man 2. I think it would be a great idea to, you know, somehow incorporate him into a small role, have a battle or some sort of sequence with him as well in Marvel Spider-Man 2. I think he's a pretty interesting character, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've seen Chameleon in a video game before. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but yeah, do you think we should see Morbius or Chameleon in Marvel Spider-Man 2? With that being said, I want to hear your opinion, so make sure to comment your thoughts down below so I can interact with you in the comments. Thank you for taking time out of your day to click on this video. If you're new to the channel, I cover Spider-Man related scoops, rumors, leaks, confirmations for Spider-Man media and whatever else I happen to be interested in. So if any of that interests you, hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 4,000 subscribers. If you want more of this type of content, leave a like on the video. Don't forget to check out my latest video on the left if you haven't already. I hope you have had a good day and that you enjoyed the video. Until next time.